Welcome to Surviving Survivor. We are back with our first special episode. This is separate from the weekly podcast where, for different unique speakers, interviews, events, we just kind of want to check in about the different things that are happening. And today I'm joined by our very close friend, special guest, Ethan Berman. So, Ethan, if you want to introduce yourself and then also tell us how you heard about this event.
Hi, I'm Ethan Berman. I am a longtime contributor to the Surviving Survivor podcast, longtime friend of Ms. Abby Tarpey, Emily McGlynn, and Jack Freiser. And this past weekend, I had the awesome opportunity to go to what was called the Survivor Beach Drop in Brooklyn, New York, which was an official CBS sponsored event promoting Survivor. They had castaways, they had challenges, they had build your own idol booth, they had a casting hut. And it was honestly a really great way to get ingratiated into the Survivor community. I'm a big fan of going to these Survivor events, which happen pretty frequently in New York. And it was really awesome. So when the Surviving Survivor team approached me and asked if I would be interested in doing an episode about the event, it was a no-brainer.
So, how did you first hear about it? Like, run me through the beat by beat timeline kind of what happened.
So I follow Survivor on Instagram, but it was actually that I saw on, for any Survivor fans who are also Big Brother fans, I follow Tucker from season 26 of Big Brother on Instagram. And he had reposted the event flyer, which was posted on Survivor Instagram. And he was like, I'll be there. I want to see all my people out there. Let me know if you'll be there, blah, blah, blah. And I said, oh, I'll be there.
Slay. So then you get there a couple days later. Where is it exactly in New York City? What's your first impression? Kind of what are the vibes?
Long story short, I asked a bunch of friends of mine to go with me. It was in Brooklyn, and no one seemed super thrilled about that just because Brooklyn's not the easiest place to get to from where I'm from. And so I said, you know what? I'm not going to let that stop me from experiencing the Survivor event. So I decided I was going to go by myself. And I took the subway down from Grand Central. And it was literally like 2 seconds away from the subway stop down in Brooklyn. It was the first stop after the Brooklyn Bridge. And immediately I wasn't sure if I was in the right place, but then I saw bamboo and palm fronds and these like huts and all this stuff. And I said, in the middle of Brooklyn, I can only imagine that's for the Survivor event.
Definitely. So you get there, you kind of see the layout. What are the first things you do, the people you see?
So when I walked up, I was very excited because immediately I could see people participating in what were some of my favorite Survivor challenges of all time. You know, they had the one where you have to like hold the rope and then put the blocks on and grab and spell out immunity. They had like you hold the paddle and you have to put the balls on and balance. They had a bunch of different booths. And then besides that, I saw a bunch of different players who people were taking pictures with, both from the new era and, the older era. I saw Jonathan Penner, Eliza Orleans from Micronesia and Vanuatu. I saw, and then, obviously a ton of players from this season. I saw Sue, I saw Andy, I saw Saul. And it was honestly at first a little overwhelming, but just like, being in that environment and realizing that everyone there had this mutual interest in the show was really awesome.
You're meeting some players. Did anyone stand out? Did you have any fun moments with previous players from Survivor?
Probably my highlight interaction was with Teeny. I was wearing a shirt that I had thrifted that was a Survivor Australian Outback shirt, and Teeny complimented it, and they were like, "Where did you get that? I love it, blah, blah, blah." And I talked about how I'm like an avid Survivor thrifter. I have, a Cook Island shirt, Survivor Amazon shirt, Vanuatu shirt. I love a good piece of Survivor merchandise. And I was chatting with them about how, I have all of the alerts on all of the different online marketplaces and blah, blah, blah. And they were like, oh, better hope I don't beat you to it next time. And it was a nice little friendly competition ribbing moment. And I thought that was really cool. I felt like I was like, out on the island with them, just be chatting in a conversation with Teeny and Andy. I was like, where am I right now? Am I on the beach of Fiji?
I will say you are the best Survivor merchandise person I've ever met because you know where to get all of the buffs and you always have like the correct things. Tucker's hat from Big Brother was crazy.
That was a good pull. I mean, I feel like the trick with a lot of these things is you have to notice what you want at the beginning of a season. So like for example, Owen from Survivor 43, he had that sweatshirt that was like rainbow
Oh,
stripes. And
yeah,
I really liked that. And I felt like it was like something that was gonna be pretty like it seemed like he was going to wear it for the rest of the season. So I started looking for it pretty quickly and I found the brand that sold it and whatever. And I bought it. And then by the end of the season, it was completely sold out because there were a bunch of people on Twitter and Reddit who had been looking for it. But, if you seek it out at the beginning of the season, it's not going to get away from you.
exactly. And you knew Ethan had it the whole time.
Of course. Of course. Come on.
You're meeting the players, getting to know them. Next thing I believe you did would be maybe the challenges. Is the
So
next
I
thing.
walked in and I didn't know where to go. So I was like, what has the shortest line? So I actually went to the idol making station.
Ooh.
And that was probably my favorite. That's like the coolest memento that I got from the day because they had like literally the same beads that are in the idols that are used on the island. Like if you saw, I think this was also 40 Survivor 43 where they had to get the beads from other players. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, and then they took like each beat
Yes.
and put an
Yeah.
idol
So
together.
I literally felt like I was like, oh, that was like Carla's bead and that was like blah 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 Noelle's bead and whatever. And like it was really cool to make my own idol using those exact same things. And I ended up making like a lot of red and orange. And I was like, okay, well, I guess I've destined myself to be on a red tribe if I ever make it onto Survivor because I'm kind of, putting it out into the ether with this one. Um, but yeah, that was what I did first. And I spent more time than I should have there. I literally was like, I have to make the perfect idol. And if I don't, then how am I ever going to make one out on the real show?
You were practicing, is what you were doing.
Exactly. Exactly. I was asking former players, like, how would you make a fake idol?
Yeah. So you make your idol, you're safe for the next tribal council,
Of
obviously.
course.
What was the next thing that you went to?
So, like I said, I went alone. So I was definitely going to do the challenges, but I wasn't necessarily in any rush because I figured, I could just hop in with a group. I was just by myself, whatever. So what I wanted to make sure I did before it shut down was the casting hut because that seemed like a really great opportunity. It's been a lifelong dream to go on Survivor, and I thought, straight to the source with this one. The CBS people are here, they're going to be watching this.
Mhm.
So I got in line for that. And I actually ended up chatting with someone in line, which I feel like I always, at like a Survivor event, which I've gone to a bunch, like I said, it's really comforting knowing that everyone there has the same exact interests as you, at least when it comes to the show and the world of reality television. So I find it's really easy to become friends with the people that you're chatting with just in your close proximity. So I ended up chatting with this girl who I ended up spending the rest of my time at the pop-up with, and we played the challenges together and whatever. And we made, like a hypothetical uh final two alliance if we ever end up on the same season because we were in the line for the casting booth together. And that was probably the longest line I waited in the whole day, but it felt really quick because I had, chatted with a new friend of mine. But when I got to the front of the line, they handed me, like a CBS contract that I had to fill out. And typically like maybe I'll browse the terms and conditions, but not on this one. I said CBS, do whatever you need to do. I'll do whatever it takes to be on the show. Thank you very much. Um, and then before I knew it, it was time, and they had the hut, which was very cool. They had a Survivor backdrop, and they had this professional, video technician who mic'd me up and, gave me pointers for my video. And, I've been rehearsing my why I should be on Survivor speech since I was 9 years old. So I felt like I had like some pretty good talking points to hit on. But I honestly really blacked out. I was like, I can't believe this is because I've made video like application videos before, but I felt like this was, the closest to the source, so to speak. I feel like they don't do a ton of open casting calls, so I felt pretty confident in the fact that this would definitely be seen by someone on the casting team. So I definitely loved that they had that opportunity available for us.
Yeah, definitely. And I feel like it probably makes it more real too, because taking it from a computer screen application to you're in person, you're in front of the sign, it looked and seems like it felt very real. Uh,
Yeah.
and then we've always joked in like our Survivor friend group that out of anyone, I feel like you would be the one who's definitely getting on a show, and out of all of the shows, I mean, you're literally named after a player. Like it has to be Survivor.
It's my destiny. It is my destiny.
So you have your idol, you get, in our opinion, you get casted, obviously.
Right. Well, so as
Right.
I'm leaving the booth, I see these little like cards on the ground and I see like the Survivor logo on them. And I asked the guy who's running it, I was like, can I just grab one of those? I wasn't sure if it was a postcard. I wasn't sure if it was like the waiver that I just signed, whatever. But I saw Survivor and, I love a good freebie. So he was like, yeah, sure. And I picked it up and flipped it over, and it was like a tips for how to get casted, like little like checklist. And I was like, okay, kind of weird they weren't showing me this before I made my video, but whatever. At least now I have this for when I make my video, my next application video. But that was really cool. It gave me some stuff that I haven't necessarily thought of before. Like they avoid using broad terms in any sense. They want you to be hyper specific, which obviously I would have assumed, but I didn't think was a hard and fast rule. I thought, in some senses being broad could leave some intrigue there, but I think they want you to leave all your cards on the table, which is not something I would have necessarily considered. And, there were some interesting pointers on there that I was like, oh, maybe I should gatekeep this, but not for the listeners of this show, only for the other Survivor fans in my life.
Yeah, we need all the tips and tricks,
Of
obviously.
course.
But you get your card, then where do you head?
Okay, so after that, I went to there was a like voting urn photo op, which was very cute. I felt like, I was mugging the camera and vote. I did one that was I wrote my name and I had a picture taken of me, voting for myself for the winner of the show, obviously, not voting out. Never that. And then I did another one where I actually voted out host of Surviving Survivor, Jack Freiser.
Ooh,
Insert photo here.
because we would never
And
vote for each other, I feel like.
oh, no, 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 no,
Like
no.
this is the alliance. So sorry, Jack.
I mean, I'm not gonna publicize that when I know Jack and Emily are gonna hear this, but like we see each other.
Did you get to keep the paper?
I okay, so I could have if I wanted to, and I was like, I should. Okay, two things. I'm gonna shatter some illusions, but I'll also finish my story. I was gonna walk away with it, and then I was like, this vote is not legitimate if I don't put it in the urn. So
That's
I
valid
put it
though.
in the urn.
Yeah, you kind of have to.
Right. But it was also like not survivor parchment.
No, okay.
So I was like not too heartbroken about not keeping that.
Yeah, well, if it's already written on, because if it's the original, like it looks exactly like the
If it
show.
looked like a survivor parchment, I would have taken one from for later, but it wasn't quite that.
But you got the photo, which was the important part.
Yes, yes. The photo op is more often than not what all that matters.
Period. So then you move on to what's next.
Then that was when I tested my luck at my first challenge with I don't know the specific name, but the block stacking immunity challenge. And it was me and the new friend that I made, and then, someone random in line behind us. And I don't want to toot my own horn, but it was until there was a winner or at the end of 3 minutes. And at the end of 3 minutes, the other two people had zero blocks stacked, and I had all my blocks stacked except for two, and I didn't drop once in the entire 3 minutes. And I said, is the casting HUD aware of what I just did? Like, someone should call them over. Like, I don't know.
Did they just
But
see you kill that?
right, at the very least, I did have video and photographic evidence, which I was thankful for. Like I had to make sure people would believe that I could do so well in these challenges.
Was it as easy as you thought it would be then, or was it more difficult?
It was weird. I was like slow and steady wins the race. And I don't know that I would have had the same mental facilities in place if I was out there on the island, not eating and actually fighting for my life in the game. But when I was doing it, there wasn't even a prize. If there was a prize, like, me, Abby, I probably would have been freaking out and like needing to win. But because it was literally just like, do you want to try the challenge? I was like, okay, this can be a relaxing experience for me. If there was like a buff on the line, I probably would have freaked out. But I did find out later in the day that they gave out buffs to the first 100 people that showed up. But like, I was not going at 10 in the morning.
Very fair. That is cute that they did that though.
Yeah.
You
Um,
you get your immunity because you didn't fully get the immunity.
yes, I got immunity. You can't spell immunity without immunity.
Exactly. So
Um,
get through that challenge.
yeah, and then maybe one of the most exciting parts of the day was there was a challenge that has never ever been done on Survivor before and will be done for the first time on this week's episode, called
Ooh.
Breaking Windows.
Okay, what was
And
that like?
they explained the rules to us. So pretty much there was a pedestal, like I guess a pedestal for every player that is participating, and then a there's like a very tall post, and there's a hollow window frame made out of blocks that like stick together magnetically, and you have to throw a sandbag through the hollow window frame onto this post and have it land there. And you have to get two of them through. And if you knock over the blocks of the window frame, you have to completely restart.
That sounds
And when I tell
difficult.
you what looked like a carnival game was so impossible that I was genuinely asking myself how they expected it to finish on the show. I, I was like, what is going on here? This is impossible. These blocks were heavy, heavy. I was like, I don't understand. Like, they haven't eaten. This is like not at least 10 days into the game. Like, I was mystified. I was scared for them. I was like, I
That
don't know.
sounds crazy.
I had someone take a video of me while I was doing it, so we can put that in. But it was really interesting, and like it was crazy. I don't know. A lot of the thing with Survivor is I feel like if you're not playing on the season and you're just watching from home, you're like, oh, well, here's how I would do that challenge. And you have the time to think about it. But being there and then seeing a challenge for the first time and then having zero time to strategize on it, just going, I felt like I was on the show. I was like, okay, you have to adapt on the fly. How are you going to do this? So I was over here on my post and I was like, okay, I'm going to crouch, and then if I throw it from lower down, I can like arch it through the window frame onto the post. That was my like survivor hack. And again, not to toot my own horn, who won that challenge? Like, I'll give you one guess.
Based on previous experiences, I think our king who has an immunity idol, immunity from the previous challenge, I think we could just assume. The video will prove.
Well, yes. So there was also a 3 minute time limit on that one. So it was like if anyone had one at the end of 3 minutes instead of two, which is what you needed to win, then um you would be the winner. So I ended up winning that one as well. I felt very confident. I was like, put me on that damn island now.
Well, speaking of the island, I do have to ask, now that you've done the challenge, prior to this Wednesday's episode, which tribe do you think will do best at the challenge? Or at least that part of it?
I
Yes.
think it's probably going to be this sort of thing where they have one tribe member doing it for each tribe at the end of an already long challenge. And,
Yes.
I don't know who would be tasked with doing it.
Mhm,
Like, in my head, I was picturing like Teeny doing it.
mhm.
I don't know. We did not discuss it. I want that on the record here and now. Teeny and I did not discuss it, nor do I think that they would be allowed to talk on it with their NDA. But if Teeny is the player for their tribe, I should go buy a lottery ticket. That's what I'm gonna say. But like I don't know. I don't know. It really depends on who's playing for each team, each tribe.
I could see Sam being really good at it too. We haven't seen his like almost like I guess that would be like aim and accuracy skills because there's no like baseball sportsy players now that TK is gone for
I
like
was
the
just
tournament
it's
itself.
it's not it's not something that requires power. It's like
Yeah.
it requires like a very light touch. It took a definite learning curve as well.
Ooh. So it'll be interesting to see who each tribe puts up for it and then also how they do at it. And then I'd love to hear your opinions on what you would expect of those players versus how they
I'm
turn out.
curious. I hope it looks the same as how it did when I participated in it. I don't know if there, was a modified version of it in some capacity that made it easier or harder for them. But I'm definitely curious about that. And
Yeah.
I'll be keeping my eyes peeled.
Looking at the previous one where you're balancing stuff, I was wondering, based on the video, if you're actually closer, so you're not going as far down the rope as
You're
they do.
definitely closer. You were definitely closer.
So I think it might be the same thing for this challenge where maybe they're throwing from farther away, but we'd have to, it would be interesting to compare the kind of the visuals and see.
I bet that probably wouldn't even make it easier. I bet if they were farther away, at least for the breaking windows, that would honestly probably make it harder.
Yeah, I think for both it would make it harder and longer, which is crazy because the challenge already wasn't easy for you, and then they're
Yeah.
starting, and then they're in sand. So there's a
Yeah,
lot of
like I was wearing sneakers on cement on pavement. Like I fear for them. Maybe they'll prove me wrong. Maybe they'll whip through it. I was thinking that. I was like, if I was on the island and I did that immunity block stacking challenge really quick, like you think Jeff would be pissed?
He'd be like, "Where's my screen time?"
Well, no, like this season in Big Brother, OTEV, which is like a really famous challenge that goes on for multiple rounds, ended in one round.
Yes.
And the online discourse was like, "Oh, I know the producers are so mad, blah blah blah." I'm like, "Oh, do you think Jeff would be angry if a challenge ended right away, or do you think he'd be like, "Oh, heck yeah, I'm gonna go get some tacos"?"
Well, and with Big Brother, it's been really weird this season because that went really quick and the wall went really quick.
Yeah,
And the marshmallow challenge took so long.
yeah, 10 hours.
So they don't really talk about that with Survivor challenges as often since you don't see it 24/7. But I have been curious about that of like which seasons when they repeat challenges like that take longer or shorter comparatively or compared to what producers expect.
It has been confirmed that they make any repeated Survivor challenge where they've made it more difficult so it doesn't last as long. Um, like if you look at I'm not sure which of her seasons, but Parvati won a challenge where it's like you had to like stand on the totem pole and have your like feet in the little footholds, whatever. And if you compare the one from that season to one from like the mid 30s, even early 30s, they're considerably smaller. And I think that there was one challenge in Palau that went like 12 hours and they had to bring out like lights and stuff. And I know Jeff Probst was very angry about that, like confirmed there are people who were there who were like, Jeff was not happy. And so I
I think
think
it
that
was that.
there,
I think it was the same challenge too, or a similar variation of it of holding on to
it
something.
was literally like they were standing on buoys in the middle of the ocean. And it was like whoever dropped. But like that's in theory pretty easy, but I know both guys who lasted long time in it, or both guys who lasted a long time. Oh boy, sorry about my dog. But both guys who lasted a while in it said that they had long-term nerve damage from it. So I
Um,
feel like it could be a medical thing as well.
yeah, or just visually on screen because there's the Great Challenge as well. That
Hmm.
the third time they did it, I thought like they had two
Yeah.
winners because the challenge ended before they could do
Hmm.
anything about it. But if we get back to the
Yes.
event, what did you do next, or was the challenge the final thing that you did?
So by that point, even though it felt like I'd only been there for like 30 minutes, it had actually been about 2 hours.
Oh,
And so it was from 12 to 6, the event, and I got there around 4 o'clock. So by this point, it was like 5:45, and we went over to there was like a booth where they had a slide puzzle as well as the one where you're holding the thing and trying to balance the balls on it. And while we were waiting in line for that, the event ended, and I was like, "Oh, well, we're in line, we're fine." And they were like, "No, you are not."
oh no.
Um, so they tried to kick us out, but then actually, hold on. I'm looking at his name because I wrote it down just so I don't mess it up. But I met John Kerhofer, who is the guy who's been behind all of the Survivor challenges since the beginning of the show's inception. He was at the event.
Oh wow.
And so there were a few of us who were able to chat with him, and that was really, really awesome. So, I mean, those were the only two challenges I didn't get to do. There was some stuff promoting the Summit, which is a new show on CBS, which seemed pretty cool, but I wasn't desperate to do those. Um, so besides that, I did pretty much everything they had to offer. And I would hop out of line if I saw, like Xander from Survivor 41 chatting with Joseph Abden from Big Brother. And I was like, hey, can we grab a selfie? Or, like if I see Katura and Kelly, uh, I'll be like, guys, we need a picture right now. So it was very nice. It was very fun. It was completely free, which you can't ask for anything better than that. And I loved that CBS was doing something in an official capacity to support and promote Survivor.
Definitely. And so, kind of in that vein, what would you say like your overall opinions were, and like would you suggest people go to it if they host something like it again?
I absolutely would recommend people go and, maybe even go earlier than I did because I know the time slots where like you could enter during a specific hour, but there were people who told me they'd been there since like 2 o'clock and stayed till it ended, so they weren't really kicking anybody out. Um, I know they did one of these in Nashville at the beginning of the season that people said was a lot of fun when they went. I think, you can't beat meeting more people who love Survivor. You'll always have something to talk about. And I mean, I'm very surprised in this day and age that CBS was willing to do something like this. But I guess that just goes to show how successful Survivor is nowadays.
Period. Do you have any final thoughts you would like to share, both about the event this season or anything Survivor related?
I am thrilled to be the official or unofficial Surviving Survivor New York City liaison. And you can always count on some boots on the ground reporting from me if there is a Survivor event in New York.
Period. Well, thank you so much, Ethan. I really love talking to you about this, and I'm so jealous you got to go. I dream of meeting Tsunami.
She's a legend. She was okay. Last story, Sue. So I for some behind the scenes, I was texting Abby while I was there, and I said how it was kind of awkward how some of the players would just like stand around waiting for people to come up to them. But Sue, who was wearing a bedazzled tsunami shirt, was standing in the middle of the event like this.
As she should.
Just waiting for people to come up to her. And then she had a friend with her who she brought who was the official picture taker. So if someone went up to her and was like, "Oh, can we get a picture?" She'd be like, "Yes, ask my friend to take it, yes." And the friend was wearing a t-shirt with the picture of Sue from the premiere challenge where she's covered in mud. And I was like, "Oh, that's a true friend."
Tell me that's not us. That's you,
No,
Survivor
that's not.
51, and it's
Yes,
yours.
yes.
It's
It's
you
an
on my
Ethan NATO.
shirt. It fits Sue so much, and like we stand that behavior. She knew what she was there for.
She
This is
was there to she was there to meet her adoring fans.
which there are many of, and I would argue we both are one of.
Someone had like one of those like 80s like edit t-shirts where it's like the big font of the name and then like a collage of photos and it was of Sue and they had her sign it and it was like a t-shirt and it was I was like, "Oh, that's Abby Tarpey behavior."
If they looked like me, that would have been like, wait, did she actually do that? Well, thank you so much for joining. I can't wait to watch the episode and talk about it with you.
I can't wait to see Breaking Windows in action.
Period. And thank you so much for listening. So the next episode will come out later this week. Enjoy Surviving Survivor.